This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Just one more month until 2021, which we're hoping is not the much hyped yet incredibly disappointing sequel to 2020. Tonight, a bipartisan group in Congress looks to break the gridlock on a new economic relief package for Americans feeling the financial pinch of the pandemic. Plus, food banks take on new importance in this tough holiday season. But first, here's what you need to know right now. Who should get the COVID-19 vaccine first? That was the question an advisory panel for the Centers for Disease Control tried to answer today. Here are the recommendations that panel proposed for the first groups of people. Healthcare personnel and long-term care facility residents should make up Phase 1A. Essential workers who do not work in healthcare should go next, while adults with high-risk medical conditions and adults who are 65 and older would be after them. Right now, two promising vaccine candidates from Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna are waiting for approval from the FDA for emergency use authorization. Those companies estimate they'll have enough doses to vaccinate about 22 million people by January. To put that timeline in perspective, the first priority group makes up roughly 24 million people in the US. The advisory committee plans to make recommendations for the next priority groups at later meetings. Technically, governors have the power to come up with their own distribution plan, but health experts expect many will stick to the CDC's recommendations once they are officially approved. Students who are remote learning seem to be falling behind in math, but keeping up with their reading. That's according to the Northwest Education Assessment, which looked at 4.4 million students in 3rd and 8th grade. The study did note it still lacks a clear picture of the most vulnerable students. As schools grapple with the best decision on how to move forward, we're seeing a trend across the country. More school districts are prioritizing in-person learning for elementary school students. Over the weekend, New York City became the latest and largest district to open up for younger students, following others like Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. Not only is in-person learning particularly crucial for elementary-aged kids, health experts say there's mounting evidence to show they are less likely to catch and transmit the virus than older kids. The idea of prioritizing younger students started in Europe. Primary schools have stayed open in many of the countries there as they deal with the second wave. The president and his legal team are still appealing to the courts, even as key states continue to certify wins for President-elect Joe Biden. On Monday, both Arizona and Wisconsin certified Biden wins in their states. The Trump campaign has filed a lawsuit in Wisconsin asking for thousands of absentee ballots to be withdrawn from the vote count because they were not issued according to state law. This comes after Trump already paid $3 million for a recount in the state, which actually found 87 more votes for Biden. Since the election, Trump has managed to raise more than $150 million to help fund his legal challenges and pay off his campaign debt. With time running out, much of that money will likely go toward political activities after he leaves office. Election officials, including Republicans and officials appointed by Trump, have repeatedly said this was the most secure election in U.S. history and that there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud, despite the president's claims. It's been months since Congress approved economic relief for Americans struggling under the weight of the coronavirus. In that time, talks have broken down on several occasions over just how much to give, with Democrats and Republicans being billions of dollars apart. Now, a group of bipartisan senators is seeking to break that impasse with a multi-billion-dollar stimulus plan. Newsy's Bianca Fascini explains.
A group of bipartisan lawmakers pitched a $908 billion COVID relief bill Tuesday as aid programs fast approach their December expiration dates.
Our action to provide emergency relief is needed now more than ever before.
The key features include $300 a week in federal unemployment benefits, $300 billion in small business relief, and $240 billion for state and local governments. It doesn't provide another stimulus check, something President Trump and Speaker Pelosi have both supported.
Not going to make everybody happy.
Senators from both sides acknowledged that each party had to make concessions in negotiations. Democrats will get their aid to state and local governments, while Republicans will get liability protections for businesses.
The time to borrow money, maybe the only time to borrow money is when there's a crisis, and this is a crisis.
But that progress won't mean much if it doesn't get the support it needs from congressional leadership or the White House. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin offered vague comments on the bill during a Senate banking hearing Tuesday morning.
I look forward to reviewing with you the overall package. I do think that more fiscal response is needed.
Meanwhile, new cases of COVID-19 continue to tick up across the country, further threatening the economic recovery. Bianca Ficini, Newsy, Washington.
Really quickly, I'm going to put together an obnoxious holiday wish list for the people who miss me the most. I'll see you in a sec. This show is a blessing because it allows me to do exactly what I do for about 30 to 45 minutes at around 1 a.m. when I should be asleep. Scroll through Twitter's trending topics. Here's what's trending. Today we celebrate an absolute civil rights legend. On this day back in 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested in Montgomery, Alabama for not giving up her seat to a white passenger. But there's a little bit of overlooked history here. Claudette Colvin's name is also trending today because she actually did it a whole 9 months before Parks.
All I do remember is that I wasn't going to walk off the bus voluntarily.
In March of 55, 15-year-old Claudette Colvin took the bus home from high school when a bus driver asked her to give up her seat, and then she refused. Just like Rosa Parks, she was arrested and taken to jail. So why is Parks' story so much more well-known? Well, Parks was the secretary for the NAACP, and they and other black organizations thought she would make a good icon. Plus, Parks was an adult while Claudette Colvin was only a teenager. Organizers thought someone Colvin's age wouldn't be reliable. We don't do a lot of pontificating on this show, but Colvin's contributions seems pretty relevant in a year like this. All over the country, people took to the streets to demand justice and equality, and a lot of those demonstrations were led by young people, not adults. We can think of Colvin as a gentle reminder to recognize strides towards justice, regardless of age. Fortnite has had some wild events this year that included a meteor, an iceberg, and a 1,000-foot tall Travis Scott. But today's event is on an even larger scale. Fortnite Nexus War is the conclusion of Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 4, an event billed as an interactive Marvel movie where participants fight Galactus, the devourer of worlds. No biggie. Whatever you think of the dance-appropriating game, Fortnite has had a hell of a year. Epic Games has used Fortnite to host live events that included musical performances, a movie trailer premiere, a series of conversations related to voting, etc. In a year when in-person contact has been ill-advised, Fortnite was really more than just a game, allowing people to virtually take part in activities we used to do outside of our homes. Remember that? Celebrity chef David Chang became the first celebrity to win the top prize in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And instead of keeping that money for himself, he's donating his entire prize to restaurant workers who've been impacted by the pandemic. The question standing between Chang and a win was to name the first US president to have electricity in the White House.
This is the most painful, nervous, this is terrifying.
Chang phoned in ESPN journalist Mina Kimes, and she helped him correctly guess President Benjamin Harrison, who was president from 1889 to 1893. Chang always intended to donate his winnings to Southern Smoke Foundation, an organization that provides crisis relief for people in the food and beverage industry. With so many restaurants having to adapt to the unique circumstances of 2020, this $1 million donation will surely go a long way. Truly, we're just glad he phoned a friend because...
I don't even know if Benjamin Harrison was a president. Did you know he was a president?
Over the past few weeks, President-elect Joe Biden has been announcing his picks to head up various departments of his administration, including the Department of Homeland Security. Biden has pledged to run the department a bit differently than his predecessor, and according to some experts, that starts with depoliticizing the department. Newsy's Ben Shamiso explains.
Thank you for placing your trust in me to lead the Department of Homeland Security.
President-elect Joe Biden's pick to head the Department of Homeland Security has promised to restore faith in the federal government's third-largest department.
To help keep us safe and to advance our proud history as a country of welcome.
But how can the incoming administration go about it? Former officials tell me it starts with depoliticizing DHS.
reassure the American people that DHS operates essentially quasi-independently from the executive.
White House aides like Stephen Miller pushed Homeland Security leaders to implement some of the administration's most divisive policies, like separating migrant families, building the border wall, and banning travel from several Muslim-majority countries.
Stephen Miller reached down into DHS and basically tried to run the department from the White House.
Biden has promised to undo most of President Trump's immigration actions, and by nominating Alejandro Mayorkas, a Latino immigrant and former DHS official, to lead the department, he has pleased immigrant advocates. But rolling back asylum restrictions is easier said than done.
How quickly can an incoming administration have all that they need in place to implement the new policies they want before the people start arriving?
Besides, former officials say keeping the spotlight on immigration could be a mistake for a department that was created after 9/11 to protect the U.S. from internal and external threats.
Immigration is a political football in American politics for both parties. And for so long as it remains so, DHS will be a politically charged institution.
Many former officials want Biden to focus less on the southern border and more on security threats they say have been neglected under President Trump, including natural disasters, cybersecurity, and the rise of white supremacy.
The heavy-duty focus on immigration really took a lot of energy and probably a lot of time from the leadership away from those other important missions as well.
Ben Chamiso, Newsy.
The first of the month means a lot of things, but there's one that's really special. Today, just like every December 1st since 1988, is World AIDS Day, a day to raise awareness and funds for the fight against HIV, which can lead to AIDS. According to the National AIDS Trust, more than 38 million people globally have HIV. Newsy's Meg Hilling tells us more about the fight against HIV and how the coronavirus pandemic has affected that effort.
As the world races to end the COVID-19 pandemic, health experts say it is critical that progress continues in the fight against HIV on this World AIDS Day.
COVID has created enormous challenges.
Chip Lyons is the president and the CEO of the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, a nonprofit working to prevent pediatric HIV infection and eliminate AIDS in children. Lyons says COVID-19 has been especially disruptive in remote regions of Africa battling HIV infections.
There are fewer visits to the clinic, fewer antenatal care visits for women who are pregnant. Supply chain of medicines has been disrupted.
According to the UN, roughly 38 million people have died from AIDS-related illnesses since the first cases of HIV were documented more than 35 years ago. Health experts say if the HIV/AIDS epidemic is to be tackled in the years ahead, COVID-19 must first be conquered.
We are calling on companies to openly share their technology and know-how and to waive their intellectual property rights, so that the world can produce the successful vaccines to the huge scale and speed required to protect everyone.
What we most welcome also is that we all take the steps that we can to conquer COVID and then conquer HIV and AIDS.
Lyons says the sooner the pandemic is brought to an end, the sooner organizations like his can begin crucial catch-up efforts in fighting the HIV/AIDS epidemic.
There are patients that we won't have been able to test these last number of months. There will be new infections. There will have been supply disruptions. So we're going to have a major job to do to get back to where we were in terms of levels of care and treatment and see further drops in the rate of new HIV infections.
For Newsy, I'm Meg Hilling.
Food banks have been slammed during this pandemic. Several cities have reported increases in the number of first-time visitors to food banks, and in New York, 1.5 million people can't afford food. Food banks have been a lifeline for people who have fallen on hard times, but some are sounding the alarm this holiday season. National reporter Alicia Nieves shows us how some food banks are worried they won't have anything left to give.
Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, thank you.
From just outside Springfield, Massachusetts, to Washington, D.C., this is what lines look like outside food banks all over the country.
Come up a little further.
It is now normal to see hundreds of cars in a line stretching for miles.
Just throw it in the back.
And people like Michael Sell arriving 2 hours ahead of when the drive-through pantries open.
I came here at 11 o'clock, and there was already 3 people in front of me.
To ensure they get the help they need.
It's almost incomprehensible how many people are hurting.
Every distribution, we're running out of food, and I'm calling suppliers, and I'm calling the food bank, saying, I need more food. How many households are you picking up for?
Robin Bielecki is with the East Hampton Community Center and works with the Western Massachusetts Food Bank to hold this drive-through food pantry a few times a month.
A lot of the people that normally give, especially during the holiday season, are keeping that food. They've lost their jobs.
Some are now in this line needing the help.
You are all set. You're welcome.
In the 19 years that she has been organizing this food pantry, Bielecki has never seen a need like this.
We definitely hope we never get to the point where we will not be able to fill the need.
But that is the real fear at most food banks around the country now, especially since in the next 4 weeks, if Congress does not pass a stimulus package, at least 12 million Americans will lose their unemployment benefits, and 11 to 13 million could be evicted from their homes. Most of those people will have no option but to turn to food banks, already at the brink.
Have a good week and a good holiday. You too, hon.
I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
What a good dog. You're all set.
If you haven't done so already, you can hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag NewsyInTheLoop. If you have done so already, then we need to move this relationship forward. My sun sign is Scorpio, my moon sign is Cancer, and my rising sign is Capricorn. How about you? Hate crimes hit an 11-year high in 2019. That's according to new stats from the FBI. National reporter Chloe Nordquist spoke to experts who explain what motivates hate crimes and why the numbers have increased.
What is a hate crime?
It's different depending on the state. The federal government has their definition, and then each state really has their own definitions.
Hate crimes are motivated by stereotypes, bias, or prejudices that people have against a certain group of individuals.
New numbers show a concerning trend. Last year, the U.S. saw the highest number of reported hate crime cases since 2008, as shown by the FBI's recently released 2019 statistics.
Hate crimes are often fueled by people who feel slighted in some way, that they have some sense of injustice for kind of who they are.
April Alexander is a psychology professor. We asked her what leads people to follow through with hate crimes.
When we're referring to Mexican people as rapists, what does that do to your inner psyche? Are you internalizing some of that? And is that fueling you to commit a hate crime or some type of microaggression?
These thoughts can lead to words or even violence. The more you hear them, the more they can impact your thoughts.
We have a current atmosphere right now that those on the fringes, and it doesn't matter what side of the extremist fringe you're on, kind of condones that type of violence. Social media, especially since we've all been cooped up, social media definitely has a role in giving people the opportunity to find like-minded people.
Stacey Harvey is a criminal justice professor. She explained that current events mixed with everyone staying home and different groups targeting people on social media during the pandemic are all having a big impact.
You're seeing these organized hate groups grooming sometimes these loner type individuals that are looking for this collective identity. Also, what you'd see with gang membership. The social isolation is leading people to find their collective identity or group online.
Of the more than 8,000 hate crime offenses reported last year, a reported 57.6% stemmed from race, ethnicity, and ancestry bias. The second largest category was motivated by religious bias at 20%.
It used to be based on sexual orientation was the largest group. for hate crimes, and now it's really turned to ethnicity or race.
It's affecting communities. So what is happening right now with communities of color being fearful of going out into the public, knowing that these hate crimes are existing?
While not all hate crimes go reported due to fear or differing definitions based on jurisdiction, Stacey and April say bystanders can play an important role in awareness.
You know, my recommendation for people who witness something is to document it, either through their phone or in a written format, and then to encourage the person to call the police so it can be documented. It is an increasing problem today in our society.
I'm Chloe Nordquist, reporting.
Music venues across the country have been a little quiet during this pandemic, and that goes for the diviest spots and the most prestigious concert halls. That's leaving a lot of musicians and their audiences desperate for any kind of live performance. While some musicians have opted for virtual appearances, national reporter Chris Conti shows us how one orchestra is hitting the road to deliver some of that classically trained flavor in person.
So much has been taken from us this year. So much silence, so hard to remember what it used to feel like.
We always have nerves. Always have nerves. Where are we starting?
But for Jason Snyder, all too familiar feelings of his first time performing at Symphony Hall in Boston suddenly came back.
It felt like I was driving in for the audition the day that I won this job.
Since March, this stage and others like it across the country have sat empty, still unsafe for audiences to return inside.
We'll get a fresh start.
So Jason Snyder and 3 of his colleagues went outside.
I hope we catch people's attention, remind them that we're here.
As some of the best French horn players in the country, a city street corner is a long way from the prestigious stages they are used to. But it is a stage nonetheless.
Live music, there's no replacement for it.
Over the years, these 4 have toured the world together. On this particular day, though, they were on a trolley traveling the city. They stopped outside hospitals filled with COVID patients, offering a crescendo of chords to remind people what they've been missing since March.
Live music, it's been a long time.
It's a reminder of that visceral experience that you get when you're listening to music. It's a physical sensation.
As the director of education for the Boston Symphony, Leslie Wu Foley wanted people to listen, to feel music again.
There's nothing like that in-person experience of just literally changing the air around you.
It's a song that's being written by musicians from coast to coast.
This is something that is popping up all around the country.
Managing the pressure of this pandemic has been hard. It's been lonely, and it's been quiet. But finding a common chord might be the best way for all of us to find some common ground. In Boston, I'm Chris Conti.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We're going to hit reset so we can do this all over again tomorrow, same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.